Or you may wish to speak from there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, colleagues, friends, fellow teacher unionists in the room, teachers, students, and of course the Honourable Minister. Thank you very much for hosting this meeting. Much has been said already, but I'm just going to quickly remind us, because we must not forget, that nearly 2.5 years after the UN's Sustainable Development Goals were adopted, they're yet to be translated into concrete action at country and local levels. As we know from the UNESCO's recent Global Education Monitoring Report, known as GEM, 263 million children and adolescents remain out of school. Most of them are found in conflict, rural and other marginalised areas. They are girls, disabled children, migrants and refugees, Indigenous groups and ethnic minorities. And progress on the other SDGs, including SDG 5 on gender equality, SDG 8 on decent work, and Goal 13 on combating climate change remains sluggish. I think we were reminded very clearly this morning by the Minister when he talked about the impact of climate change on this region in the Pacific. We know that climate change is real. It poses a serious threat to our planet and our very existence. And governments must rise up and address this critical urgency of our time. Education is one of the most powerful tools we can use to combat climate change. And progress towards the implementation of SDG 4, quality education, has been hampered by lack of adequate financing, perennial teacher shortages, inadequate infrastructure, and insufficient teaching and learning resources. Many Commonwealth countries, including the most developed, continue to recruit unqualified personnel. Large class sizes remain a major hurdle to achieving quality education for all. And coming back to education financing, the GEM report shows that 1 in 4 countries spend less than 4% of GDP or 15% of public expenditure on education, against the internationally agreed benchmarks of at least 6 and 20% respectively. The latest data we have shows that only 33% of the South Pacific Island countries allocate at least 20% of their national budget to education. And the education share of total development aid has fallen from 10% in 2009 to only 6.9% in 2015. Colleagues, this is the context in which we meet today. Therefore, our response to the questions sustainability and resilience, can education deliver, should take these and other prevailing challenges facing our country's education systems into account. As we critically examine the term resilience, we should avoid shifting the responsibility of dealing with such global phenomena as climate change, radicalisation, conflict, and other challenges from governments to individuals. Expecting individuals to absorb shocks and bounce back in the name of resilience without addressing the structural and root causes of the challenges affecting our countries, our communities and our education systems would not only be unfair, but a negation of the primary responsibility of governments. And that's why I suggest 3 imperatives for achieving the SDGs, sustainability and resilience through education, namely, resilient education systems, resilient educators, and resilient students. Resilient education systems. Well-governed, financed and resourced education systems and institutions are crucial in ensuring full access to education, quality, equity and cohesion. Resilient, sustainable and inclusive education systems are free and publicly funded, financed entirely or mainly through domestic sources. For-profit non-state schools, including the so-called low-cost private schools, are not a panacea to inclusive quality education for all. They put profits before students, exclude the poor and the marginalised. The World Bank's 2018 World Development Report concedes that private schools do not deliver better learning outcomes than public schools and that, I quote, private schooling may also deepen social cleavages. Democratic and resilient systems have institutionalised mechanisms for social dialogue with teacher unions and education support professionals. They consult with and include teachers, students, parents, the youth and civil society in the decision-making processes related to education policy and programs. And secondly, resilient teachers and education support professionals. As stipulated in the Incheon Declaration and the Education 2030 Framework for Action, governments should fulfil the commitment to ensure that teachers and educators are empowered, adequately recruited, well-trained, professionally qualified, motivated and supported within well-resourced, efficient and effectively governed systems. Being an empowered teacher means more than having access to high-quality training and continuous opportunities for professional development, which are obviously very important. It also means having the professional autonomy to make decisions in developing and organising curricula, and the freedom to choose the most appropriate methods and approaches that enable more effective, inclusive and equitable education. And it means being able to teach in safety and security during times of political change, instability and conflict. Academic freedom is crucial for all teachers, in particular those in higher education. Academic freedom enables teachers to innovate, explore and engage in up-to-date research without interference. And thirdly, resilient students. Resilient students and youth are empowered not just to regurgitate knowledge, but to learn, solve problems, create, innovate and adapt to new situations. They are empowered to live in harmony with others and with nature. Unfortunately, many education systems are driven by competition and testing. As we all know, too much emphasis on standardised assessment narrows the curriculum by forcing schools and teachers to teach the test. They promote competition between schools and teachers instead of fostering collaboration among them. We should also remember that higher order skills and values such as problem solving, creativity and tolerance cannot be measured merely through pencil and paper tests. So let me conclude by reminding you that our country's vision of quality education should be bold, broad and ambitious, go beyond a narrow focus on testing. I remind you of the landmark UNESCO report, Learning the Treasure Within, where we are given that broader vision of education through the 4 pillars of learning, which are learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning together. Be together. Thank you.